Driving delivery routes in Alaska wasn't for the faint of heart, especially in winter, and even more if you are a female driver like me. The roads were unforgiving, the cold could sap the life out of you, and the isolation, well, you had to be okay with your own company. That night in 2018, I was on the tail end of a grueling shift, the kind where your eyes sting from staring at endless snow-covered roads. My truck was loaded with packages for remote addresses, the kind of places where people valued the rare delivery service. The storm had started to pick up just as the last light of day slipped away. The snow came down heavy, coating the road and obliterating the faint tire tracks that had been my only guide. I'd driven this route enough times to know it was miles before the next town, and even farther to the last stop on my list. The heater in the truck was barely holding up, and I had a thermos of lukewarm coffee to keep me company. About 20 miles from nowhere, my truck's tires skidded on an icy patch. I corrected, but the back wheels sank into the growing drifts on the roadside. No amount of rocking or cursing was going to get me unstuck. I was alone, surrounded by miles of empty snowfields and dense trees. I checked my phone, no signal. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out into the bitter cold to assess the situation. The wind was a knife slicing through my layers, shining the light on the wheels. It wasn't good. The tires were buried halfway up, and there was no traction to be found. As I weighed my options, I spotted something in the distance. Headlights. I was overwhelmed with relief. Maybe it was another driver, or a local who could help. The lights grew brighter as the vehicle approached, revealing the familiar shape of a snowplow. The plow stopped just behind my truck, its amber lights flashing against the falling snow. A man climbed out, bundled up in heavy winter gear, a scarf and hat. He waved and trudged toward me. "Looks like you're stuck," he called over the wind, his voice muffled by the scarf. "Yeah, can't get the tires to catch. I can help dig you out," he offered, his breath visible in the freezing air. "But you'll freeze out here. Why don't you sit in my cab while I work?" Something about his suggestion didn't sit right. His tone was too casual, too eager. I shook my head. "I'll be fine out here. Got a flashlight and plenty of layers." The man's gloved hands rested on his hips. "Suit yourself, but it's warmer in the cab." "Thanks, but I'll stay with the truck," I said firmly. He stared at me for a moment longer before nodding. "All right, let me grab a shovel." He returned to his plow and rummaged in the back. But unease crept over me. It just didn't feel right. His movements were too slow, almost like he was buying time. I looked at my truck and considered locking myself inside. But before I could act, he returned with a shovel. "Let's see what we can do," he said. I kept my flashlight trained on the tires as he started digging. He worked slowly, his eyes flicking toward me more often than seemed normal. The hair on the back of my neck prickled and I stepped back, increasing the distance between us. "You know," he said casually, pausing the shovel, "this road doesn't see much traffic at night. You're lucky I came along." "Yeah, lucky," I replied. The digging continued for another minute before he stopped and straightened up. "You're going to need more than a shovel to get out of this. Why don't you hop in my cab and we'll call for a tow from town?" "I'd rather stay here," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral but firm. He dropped the shovel to the ground. "Suit yourself," he muttered. But as I turned back toward my truck, I felt a strong, sudden grip on my arm. My breath hitched as he yanked me backward. "You're being stubborn," he said, his voice low and threatening now. "Let me help you." "No," I shouted, twisting with every ounce of strength I had. "Let me go." I pulled away, adrenaline giving me strength as I planted my feet and jerked hard, breaking free from his grasp. I stumbled back toward my truck, fumbling for the door handle, but he was right behind me. "You're making this harder than it has to be," he growled, reaching for me again. I spun around, grabbing the shovel he dropped and swung it wildly, not caring if it hit him or just scared him off. The blade sliced through the air, missing him by inches, but it was enough to make him step back. He glared at me, his friendly mask fully gone now, replaced with something cold and calculating. "Fine," he spat. "Good luck out here." He stomped back to his plow and climbed into the cab. I watched as he backed up, the rumble of the engine drowning out the wind. For a moment I thought he was leaving, but instead of driving away, he maneuvered the plow to block my truck. "What are you doing?" I shouted, adrenaline spiking. The deafening sound of the plow's engine combined with the spinning amber lights sent panic coursing through me. I reached for the driver's door, yanked it open, and locked myself inside. The plow didn't move, but the man climbed out again, this time without the shovel. He walked toward my truck, his posture no longer friendly. He tapped on the window, his gloved hand leaving streaks on the glass. "Open up," he said, his voice muffled but clear. "You're not going anywhere without my help." I didn't respond. My hands trembled as I grabbed my phone, hoping for a signal. Still nothing. The man knocked again, harder this time. "I'm trying to help you," he said. I grabbed the flashlight from the passenger seat and shone it directly at his face. He flinched and stepped back, muttering something I couldn't hear. Then he turned and walked back to the plow. For a moment I thought he was giving up. But then he inched the plow forward, the blade scraping against the snow and pushing it closer to my truck. He wasn't just blocking me in, he was trapping me. I couldn't stay in the truck. The engine was running, but if he decided to break a window or force the door, I'd be a sitting duck. I grabbed my flashlight and a small multi-tool from the glove compartment, my breath shaky as I braced myself. I opened the passenger door as quietly as I could and slipped out, landing in the snow. The wind swallowed any sound I made as I crept toward the woods. The moment I reached the tree line, I broke into a run. The snow was deep, each step a struggle, but I pushed forward. I didn't dare look back. The sound of the plow's engine was a constant reminder that I wasn't safe yet. My flashlight's beam wavered with my unsteady hands. I stumbled over roots and buried rocks, the cold biting at my face and hands. Then I heard it, the crunch of footsteps behind me. He was following me. I killed the flashlight and crouched low, my heart pounding in my ears. The footsteps grew louder, closer. I pressed myself against a tree, trying to steady my breathing. The footsteps paused and I heard him call out, "You can't hide out here forever. You'll freeze before you make it anywhere." His voice sent a shiver down my spine. I stayed still, praying he wouldn't find me. Minutes felt like hours as I waited, listening to his movements. Then, mercifully, the footsteps grew fainter, and the sound of the plow's engine rumbled back to life. I didn't wait to see if he was really gone. I kept moving, using the faint glow of the moon to guide me. But every step through the thick drifts felt like it was sapping what little energy I had left. My breath puffed out in clouds, and my legs burned, but I pushed forward. That's when I remembered something. A delivery I'd made months ago, an old cabin tucked away in these woods. It had been small and weathered, but the owner, a quiet man in his 60s, had seemed kind enough. It wasn't close, but it was my only shot. I adjusted my course and started heading in the direction I thought the cabin might be, praying I could find it in the dark. The forest felt endless, surrounded just by the eerie stillness of the dark winter woods. After what felt like hours, I saw a weak flickering light in the distance. It gave me the strength to quicken my pace. As I got closer, the familiar outline of the cabin came into view. I stumbled toward it, my legs threatening to give out beneath me. My hand pounded on the wooden door. "Hello? Please, I need help." My voice hoarse from the cold and panic. After a moment, the door creaked open, and the homeowner appeared. It was the same man I'd delivered to before, his lined face creased with concern. "What on earth?" "Come inside, quick," he said, ushering me in. The warmth of the cabin hit me like a wave, and I nearly collapsed onto the worn couch by the fire. I tried to explain everything, my words tumbling out in a frantic rush. There was this man, a plow driver. He tried to grab me. I ran. I didn't know where else to go. The man listened patiently, and without hesitation he grabbed the phone on the counter and called the police. While we waited, he handed me a blanket and a cup of hot tea. My hands shook so badly that I spilled some, but I didn't care. The warmth helped calm me, but I couldn't stop thinking, what if he came here next? The police arrived about an hour later, their flashing lights breaking the pitch-black night outside the cabin. I ran to the door as they stepped out, feeling a rush of relief at the sight of their uniforms. I recounted everything again, trying to keep calm this time. They listened carefully, taking notes and asking questions. Then one of them said, "Let's get you back to your truck. We'll check it out and make sure you can get out of here safely." The idea of going back out there made my stomach twist, but I knew I had no choice. When we arrived, my truck was exactly where I'd left it, half buried in snow and still blocked by a wall of plowed snow from where the man had tried to trap me. The officers' flashlights scanned the area as they stepped out. One of them inspected the truck while the other looked around the surrounding woods. "No sign of him," one officer said after a few tense minutes. "But we'll keep an eye out. Let's get you unstuck." I could feel my hands shaking on the steering wheel as the truck finally lurched free. Relief washed over me when the officer gave me a thumbs up, signaling I was good to go. "We'll follow you back to the main road," one of them said, "just to make sure you're safe." That short drive felt like it lasted forever, but having those flashing blue and red lights behind me was a comfort I needed. When we finally reached the highway, they pulled up beside me, one officer rolling down his window. "You'll be okay now," he said. "If anything else happens, don't hesitate to call." My voice caught in my throat as I thanked them. To this day, I don't know who that man was or what he truly intended, but I know I'll never forget the look in his eyes when his friendly facade slipped. I'll never forget the way he blocked my truck, the way he grabbed my arm, and I'll never forget the desperation I felt as I ran through the woods, wondering if I'd ever make it out. Now, every time I drive those remote roads, I carry a flashlight, a portable phone charger, and pepper spray within arm's reach. I know better than to rely on the kindness of strangers. Because sometimes, the people offering help are the ones you need to fear the most. This was during our school's winter break. It was the day after Christmas, and I had a part-time job at our town's pizza shop. This place was pretty popular, and it felt like pretty much every kid at my school also worked there. Being so young though, every paycheck made me feel like I was rich, so I always agreed to work whenever they needed me. I thought it wouldn't be that busy this day, because everyone would be staying home with their families still, but I couldn't have been more wrong. Around dinner time, all the indoor seats were taken up, and we were getting tons of delivery orders. My job was to greet and seat people, or do deliveries if needed. Around 8, my manager told me to start taking deliveries. I did a quick one, then picked up another from the kitchen and got back on the road. It was a single pizza to be delivered at a home 20 minutes away. At least the roads weren't busy, they were actually really dead. Like barely anyone was outside, which was a very odd change of atmosphere from being inside the pizza shop. Snow was lightly falling down, really only visible under the street lights. It was so peaceful, I actually drove the speed limit and tried to soak it in, knowing what waited for me back at work. Eventually I got to the customer's house though. It wasn't really in a neighborhood. It was directly off the side of the road, with its own long gravel road leading up to it. The house was surrounded by snow-covered trees and had over-the-top Christmas decorations all over their house and front yard. They hadn't plowed their driveway though, which made it difficult to find a place to park without getting stuck. I did the best I could, then got out with their order. One thing I noticed when walking up to their house was that while all the outdoor lights and decorations were turned on, not a single light inside was on, at least from what I could see from the front of the house. But as I walked closer, I realized there were shoe prints in the snow going up to the front. I figured it was the owner, obviously. When I got up to the porch though, the shoe prints didn't go up to the door. They went around to the side of the porch. I thought that was weird, but hey, it was none of my business anyway. I knocked on the door. It was pretty cold out there, so after 30 seconds I knocked again. It was quiet outside, just the low breeze and falling snow, and yet I still heard nothing inside the house. I double-checked the receipt to make sure I needed the payment, then knocked for a third time. I mean, the shoe prints in the snow were fresh, so they had to be home. Getting frustrated and starting to shiver, I knocked one last time, very loudly, probably shaking the whole house. Still, nobody answered. After that, I gave up. I left and went back to my car, getting in and trying to turn it on, but it wouldn't start. The engine kept stalling. I swore under my breath as I tried relentlessly to get it going, only getting more frustrated by the second, and my hands getting colder and colder. Then I happened to glance up and saw a person standing outside the house. They were completely bundled up, boots, jacket, snow pants, everything. I got out of my car. "Hey, did you order the pizza? I've been out here knocking on your door for 5 minutes." They didn't say anything but began walking toward me. It took me a few seconds to realize something wasn't right, and I got back in my car. The way they kept their pace, not hurrying or anything, gave me the impression that they knew I couldn't leave. And that's when I started to panic. I began dialing 911 as they approached my window. Just when the officer asked what my emergency was, they started speaking. He had a low, deep voice and kept asking if I needed help. How the hell would he know that? That only confirmed my suspicions. I told the officer what I could and how to get where I was. The man outside started getting impatient, moving faster, and looking around like he was trying to find a way in. It was absolutely terrifying, sitting helplessly in my tiny car with this likely dangerous man outside and only a thin window between us. I kept trying to get the engine running, praying for it to work. He then started reaching into his pockets, looking for something, but I could see the panic in his face when he couldn't find whatever he was looking for. He then punched the window a few times, trying to break it, before running back to the side of the house, like he was going to get something. 2 minutes passed as I sat there, trying to decide whether to wait for the cops or leave my car and try to make a run for it. Then I saw the flickering blue and red lights in my mirror, and at the same time, the man showed up on the side of the house, holding something in his right hand. He saw the lights and instantly took off. I'm sure it doesn't need too much explaining as to what happened that night, but that man didn't live there. The owners were gone for the holidays, but the man had plugged in their decorations in the outlet outside the house to make it look like they were home. While I was on the porch, he tampered with something outside my car to keep it from turning on. I'm not a car guy, so honestly I didn't really understand it. Likely the man planned to kidnap me, but out of sheer luck, he must have dropped his knife or whatever tool he needed to break the window, so that's what he ran back to get. Nothing's for certain, of course, but that seems like the most likely case. Anyway, I stopped doing deliveries after that night. It was one of those nights where the snow seemed endless, blanketing everything. My shift at the clinic had run late, and the drive home was already daunting. The roads were slick and the snowfall created a haze under the glow of my headlights, but I didn't mind. I love my job as a veterinary technician, and the peace of driving alone after a long day was something I usually cherished. This night felt different though. There was an odd heaviness in the air, a stillness that didn't feel comforting. I thought it was just exhaustion. About halfway home I noticed the snowbanks on either side of the road growing taller, narrowing my path. The roadside trees stood tall and still, their dark forms blended seamlessly into the surrounding darkness. I hadn't seen another car in miles, which wasn't unusual for these rural roads, but it still left me feeling strangely vulnerable. That's when I heard it. At first I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. The faint sound of a baby crying drifted through the cold. I lowered the volume of my radio, trying to listen. The crying came again, low but clear, carried by the wind. I slowed my car, looking at the dark forest on my right. The sound was coming from there. It didn't make sense. Why would a baby be out here, in the middle of nowhere, during a snowstorm? I pulled over, hesitating as the cries grew clearer. My breath fogged the windshield as I sat there. Everything in me screamed to stay in the car and keep driving, but another part, maybe the vet tech in me, or just the human, couldn't ignore it. If a baby was really out there, they wouldn't survive long in these conditions. Grabbing my phone to use as a flashlight, I stepped out of the car. The cold hit me like a slap, the kind that seeps through every layer of clothing and chills you to the bone. The snow crunched beneath my boots as I made my way toward the tree line, the flashlight beams shining through the dense snowfall. "Hello," I called. "Is anyone out there? Do you need help?" The crying continued in the distance. It was coming from deeper in the woods. I stopped, looking back at my car. The safety of its warm interior felt miles away, but I couldn't leave now. As I pushed further into the forest, the trees felt like they were closing in tighter. The crying grew louder, more urgent. I scanned the ground and my surroundings, expecting to find a stroller or someone in distress. Instead, I found a small patch of disturbed snow. At its center was a baby blanket, partially buried under the fresh powder. I bent down to pick it up, my fingers trembling as I brushed the snow away. The blanket was damp and frayed at the edges, the kind of thing that had seen years of use. My stomach churned. Where was the baby? That's when I heard the sound of branches snapping behind me. My flashlight whipped around, illuminating nothing but trees and snow. "Hello?" I called again, this time louder. The crying had stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. A sudden gust of wind rustled the branches, and for a moment I thought I saw movement, something darting between the trees. My heart thudded in my chest as I backed away, clutching the blanket like it was some kind of shield. I turned toward the direction of my car, but it was hard to tell where I'd come from. The snow was falling heavier now, obscuring my footprints. I cursed to myself, my breath coming out in visible puffs. Another snap of a branch, closer. "Is someone there?" My voice was firmer now, masking the growing panic I felt. The beam of my flashlight danced over the trees, but there was no one. Just shadows and snow. Then I heard it again, the crying. But this time, it wasn't distant. It was behind me. I spun around, the flashlight beam shaking as I tried to locate the source. Suddenly the crying stopped, leaving an almost deafening silence in its wake. My body locked up even though my mind was screaming to run. But then, I saw them. Footprints in the snow, leading away from where I stood. I followed their path with the flashlight. The prints seemed to weave through the trees. "Enough," I muttered to myself. Whatever this was, it wasn't normal. I started walking back in the direction I hoped my car was, my flashlight sweeping side to side. The snow made it harder to see, and every noise, the wind, the crunch of snow underfoot, felt magnified. Then I saw it. Through the falling snow, my car came into view. For a brief moment, I felt relief, but it was gone just as fast. A shadow moved across the road, just at the edge of my headlights. It was quick, almost imperceptible, but it was there. I bolted for the car, gripping the blanket tightly as if it would somehow protect me. Once inside, I locked the doors and fumbled with the ignition. As soon as the engine started, I wasted no time pulling back onto the road. By the time I got home, I was shaking. I tossed the blanket onto the kitchen counter and collapsed onto the couch, trying to make sense of it all. Had it been a prank, some twisted joke, or was there something more to it? The next morning I couldn't let it go. That blanket, the sound of the cries, they haunted me. I decided to call the local sheriff's office. When I explained what had happened, the deputy on the other end of the line fell silent for a moment, before asking me to come in. At the station, they listened carefully as I recounted everything. When I mentioned the baby blanket, one of the deputies looked at the other. Finally, he spoke. "That stretch of road has a history," he said. We've had reports of strange sounds and sightings out there for years. Sometimes it's laughter, sometimes crying. A few people have even claimed to see figures in the trees. We've investigated, but we've never found anything concrete, and honestly, most folks prefer not to talk about it. I felt a chill run through me. What about the blanket? I asked. Doesn't that mean someone was out there? We've found blankets before, he admitted, but no babies. No people either. It's like whoever or whatever left them disappears without a trace. His words stayed with me as I drove home, the afternoon sun doing little to ease the tension in my chest. That stretch of road, those woods, they weren't normal. I knew that now. A week later, I had to take the same route home after a late shift. The tension in my hands was obvious as I gripped the wheel while passing the spot where I'd pulled over. I looked over the tree line, part of me certain that something, or someone, was hidden there. The woods were silent, but as I drove on, I couldn't rid myself of the thought that I wasn't alone. I don't know what I heard that night, or who, or what was out there, but I haven't driven that stretch of road since, and every time I hear a baby crying, I can't help but feel a shiver of unease,